You can't be serious, man. You cannot be serious!
Don, sometimes when we introduce people, they only have one string to their bow, and you can read out their stats about how many games they've played or what they've done. But sometimes, not often, we interview people whose body of work, it is impossible to say how successful and how inspiring and how completely dominant has this person been in the industry we call the media and entertainment. So I'm not going to try and mention everything he's done, or to take half an hour. But he is an Australian television and radio presenter. He also is a very popular, I would say almost, we might ask him, the most popular marriage celebrant in Australia. It's no point telling you all the radio stuff he's done, all the television shows he's done, all the performances and all the shows that he's been on. It's just impossible. You've done some research on him. I know him well. He's a great friend of mine, and he is probably the most successful person that we've ever spoken to as far as the media and television and radio goes. And he is the great Greg Evans. Welcome, Greg.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you very much. It's nice to have a warm hand on your opening. Thank you for the clap.
Now, Greg, let me just ask you this straight off the top. When did you realise that you were going to be a star? Because at some stage, I'm telling you this now, I'm not asking you, you are probably the biggest star of your time. You were the biggest star and probably still are if you think back about the body of work this man's done. When did you realise it was going to be your life's ambition?
Well, Sam, I grew up always wanting to be a disc jockey. I used to talk into saucepans under the bedclothes when I was 12. Have you ever tried that, Don? You talk into a saucepan under the bedclothes, you hear it back. So it's like the headphones that you're wearing now that you never normally wear. So consequently, I wanted to be a radio announcer, and that's really all I wanted to be.
It started in Colac, didn't it?
It did. Yeah, it started in Colac, 3CS in Colac. And I used to play country music because I did the breakfast show, country music to the cows. And cows actually milk better to harmonious music. That's a fact, right? So the country music they don't like rock and roll, cows. So my career started by playing country music to the cows.
That fascinates me because I love talking to these guys that have started, because you had to do an apprenticeship, didn't you, in the country? Sandy Roberts also started at
3CS.
3CS. I think he might have gone to Bendigo, or did he start at Bendigo and come to 3CS? But he's definitely at 3CS.
I was there with Sandy.
Were you really?
Don, we actually shared a bedroom, not the same bedroom, but next door to each other, in a boarding house in Armstrong Street, Colac, with Mrs. Kerr, who used to take in the young announcers that had come along. You are right. You had to do an apprenticeship. A radio announcer had to go to the bush to learn their skill, their craft, before they could come back to the city.
So how long was your apprenticeship?
3 years.
Don.
3 years. I wanted to work at 3XY. Do you remember that leviathan of a radio station? 3XY in Melbourne, like 2SM in Sydney and a network. But that's where I wanted to work. But I had to go to the bush. So 3CS Colac, 3CV Maryborough, and then 2KA Katoomba.
So Don,
I can't ask another question.
you can, but if you go too long on 3CS.
I'll cut you out.
There's so many things that he's done. We cannot dwell too long on 3CS.
Yeah, but hang on. It was very competitive back in those days to get to the top of that pinnacle, which is Melbourne or Capital Radio.
Capital City.
City Radio. How many auditions did you do to get to 3XY?
Well, over the 3 years, quite a few. It was certainly a matter of who you knew and then what you knew. If you were no good, you were never going to make it. And if you were good and didn't know anyone, you were never going to make it either. But when I was in Katoomba, I'd come back to Melbourne.
Katoomba?
Well, that's 2KA was one of the stations I worked at up there. I did the breakfast program just down from the three.
So how many radio stations in the country did you work for?
3 in the country.
Katoomba, Colac.
and Maryborough, near Bendigo.
You went to Mirror.
Yeah, not for long, though.
So, Don.
This is fascinating.
I know. This is why he's in, because he's a fascinating person.
These blokes used to just float around to all the various stations.
Always heading towards the Cap City one.
Yeah.
So then he got the apprenticeship and he got a gig on 3XY. He was the number one driver.
I know.
Well, I was telling our listeners, in case they didn't know, he is the number one rated disc jockey on drive on 3XY after he did his apprenticeship.
Yes.
That's how it started.
That's right, Sam. Yep. And so there I was, a young bloke. I think I was about 22 working at 3XY, and it was a great place to be at that time in my life because the radio station was number one. I think in Melbourne, everyone under the age of 35 listened to 3XY. We were closely associated with sport, with Peter Brock and football.
Oh, yeah.
I used to do those rock words in the footy record. Yeah. And there was an album somewhere along the way with singers. Were you on that, Don or Sam? The football album that came out, the Footy Favourites.
Don's tone deaf, so he wouldn't be singing.
So, but it was a terrific spot to be because, as I say, everyone listened. These days, there's so many ways that people can get their entertainment. You'll never get a radio station that is that concentrated.
What was the catch cry of 3AK was where no wrinklies fly. What was 3XY's?
Well, more music, 3XY,
yep.
and then Rocktober.
3XY Hot Hits?
Hot Hits, no.
But going
more
back
music.
to those days, was it? There was Stan Roth. What was he?
Stan
3KZ or 3DB?
No, very good. 3KZ, that's right.
Okay,
Stan the
so
Man, Melbourne's rocky jockey.
And then Don the Do-Gooder.
Don the Doodle.
Don the Do-Gooder. Don Lund.
Don Lund. Professor Fun. Don Lund. That's right.
But that was
3UZ.
3AK,
3UZ.
UZ. He was a star, Don Lund.
He was. Yeah, there was Lap on
Lap,
3UZ.
Alan
Lappin. That's right.
Yes.
Will make your life worthwhile. So
Alan.
tune 9:30 on your dial.
Very nice. And up the Collins Street Hill. Yeah. And Sam Anglesey was on 3UZ, followed by Stan Rofe at 10 to 1. Stan Rofe.
So let's speak about you, Greg. So you did 3XY.
Grantley D.
Yes, a different radio station.
You know what they
3AK.
used to do to Grantley D?
No.
Well, he used to be a singer.
Yes. Let the little girl dance.
Well done. And they take him off.
He's blind.
No, I know where you're going to go with this. No, they didn't, did they?
They
Don.
did.
Oh,
because I remember being at Q Club.
Don, you've got to tell people he was blind or it makes no sense.
I don't know if can I say it?
Well, then don't.
Okay.
Well, what they used to turn him around so he wasn't facing the
So
audience.
the poor man would start singing to the curtain.
Yeah, that's
instead
right.
of the audience.
Because they were being pricks. So Greg, obviously we're just warming up to get into the television, and you being the number one highest rated person on television ever in the history of it since 1950. You were in 1956. We'll get onto that in a minute.
56.
Since when it started in 56, Bruce Gingell was the first on television on 9.
Welcome to television.
Welcome to television. And since he was the number one, the highest rated show ever. Except for maybe some extravaganzas and benefits and concerts, but
You're talking about Perfect Match.
I am talking, but we're not getting. We're easing into that. Well, we'll talk about because I was going to say you're 3 times nominated Gold Logie.
Yeah, I got some awards at 3XY.
The number of awards you got, I couldn't read out, mate. There were hundreds of them.
Well, yeah. Well, no, that was for the most popular disc jockey in Victoria, and that was the TV Week King of Pop Awards, and I was pretty pleased with that because I'd come back to 3XY, was working at a fabulous radio station with some really professional people, and I got to meet all these rock stars, Don. These people that came through Melbourne to perform, the Led Zeppelins and the rock stars and the bands.
Jimmy Page.
And is that where you met your wife? One of those came through from...
She wasn't a rock star.
No, but wasn't she with a
record company? Yes. She was with Warner Brothers Records, and when I wanted Sue, and when the Badger, and when you wanted to
the Badger.
If I ask him to explain why she's called the Badger, that'll be it.
Well, she holds on and doesn't let go.
No, not at all. Nothing to do. It's not naughty or anything. It's just
So anyway, the badger was... I tell you what, in those days, if you wanted to do an interview with a rock star, you had to go through an operator. There were telegrams had to be sent to their record company overseas. And now I wanted to interview Roberta Flack.
Yes.
Remember? Killing Me Softly with his shovel.
Yes.
So consequently, I would have to ring Warner Brothers Records in Melbourne, who would then send telegrams to Warner Brothers Records in Los Angeles, etc. And it took about a week, and eventually you might get this interview when an operator would, are you extending, would connect, and hello, Roberta Flack. And so the woman at Warner Brothers Records was Sue. And then at one stage, I used to be a disc jockey at Silver's nightclub on a Thursday night. After I'd finish at 3XY, I'd go down to Silver's with Johnny Wheeler and the rest of them, and Gary Mack was down there. And I'm in this fish bubble thing trying to work out what discotheque was, because it was just starting. And Johnny Wheeler said, look over there, there's Sue from Warner Brothers Records. You would have met her. And so consequently, that's how we first met.
And I'm just as a bit of information on the first discotheque record ever out, I believe, was by Silver Convention, called Fly Robin Fly.
Yes, that's a fact.
I think that is the first recognised discotheque
Gloria
record.
Gaynor was in there as well.
Yeah, but she was well after. So, Greg,
it's a good bit of trivia.
So then, Don, Greg, how did you start on the blockbuster show that saw you the number one rated person in the world? How did that start? How did you get the gig?
Yeah, well, when I got the 3 awards, 3 years in a row for most popular disc jockey, the hat trick, Mike Walsh had a show on Channel 9 at midday.
That's right.
Which was a fabulous show, by the way. Went all over Australia. It was live. Pity you can't do something like that again now, but costs, I suppose.
Variety, wasn't it?
Oh, fabulous. Live singers.
I'd come in from lunch, I was working on the farm and watched that.
It was terrific, wasn't it?
Yep.
And a great guy, Mike Walsh. And so I was a guest on his show to talk about the awards. So I was just simply a guest on a television show. And he offered me a job. He said, we're about to do a kids show on television, and, you know, you're popular in Melbourne and all of that. And radio bred a lot of television people in those days.
But not many made the transition.
A lot did. Graham Kennedy started in radio. Bert Newton started in radio. Mike Walsh started in radio. A lot of them.
That's early days.
Early days. And now later days, you're right. You're right, Don.
Well done, Don.
There's not as many people make the transition these days.
Not as versatile. They are all specialists, or think they are.
Yeah, it's changed, hasn't it? Anyway, as a result of the Mike Walsh show, he employed me as a reporter, and I did, would you believe, street talk on the Mike Walsh show.
Really?
Yeah, for 3 or 4 years. Still working at 3XY in Melbourne, flying to Sydney to do the Mike Walsh show once a week, live, and... the most embarrassing... Can I share an embarrassing story with you? I had to be first on the show because it went to air at midday, and I was back on the radio in Melbourne at 3 o'clock on drive time. So I had to be first on and then rush to Sydney Airport to catch the 1:10 flight to get to Melbourne, to race down the freeway to get to 3XY by 3 o'clock.
Yeah.
And it was awful. If the plane had headwinds. Anyway, on this particular day, for some reason I couldn't get on the show first. So the producer said to me, we're going to have to put you on second and you'll finish a little bit later, but it's all right. We've organised a helicopter at Channel 9 to get you to the airport, from TCN Channel 9 to the airport, and you'll be right. You'll catch your flight. I said, oh, that's fantastic. So I did the segment, and it finished at 20 minutes to 1. The plane's at 1:10 or something. And they've got me as soon as I've come out of the studio down the fire escape. The helicopter's already got its rotary going, and we're in the helicopter and we're flying towards Sydney Airport. And he said, you know, which airline? I said, Ansett. Right, beautiful. You know, helicopter 1, you know, gate lounge 6, and down we go. And it's now 5 minutes to 1, and we taxi, a helicopter taxis, 10 feet off the ground, and lands right at the aeroplane. And I thought, this is fantastic. I've got a suit and a pack and a staircase leading up to the plane. And the woman, the hostie, came out of the door, and I got out of the helicopter and I ran up the stairs, and she looked at the boarding pass and said, "You're at the wrong frigging airline."
TAA, was it?
It was,
whatever.
Ansett or Qantas or something. And then they had to put me in the baggage car then with, those trolley things.
Yeah.
And I was in with suitcases going around the airport to the right plane. What a stuffer.
So how did you get the gig at Perfect Match?
Well, so as a
So they
result...
created
That
the
was
show
9
for you.
and 10. And
No,
10
Yeah, that was 9. Don's right. Channel 9 for the Mike Walsh show. And then
10 for
No, but
Perfect Match.
Perfect Match
No.
was 10.
Yes, I know that. I'm asking how you got the gig there. Did
Grundy's.
they create the show for you?
No, Grundy's came up with the show. Reg Grundy, very, very talented Australian. Perfect Match wasn't a copy of anything. It was made here in
So
Australia.
they made it for you. That's what I
It
said.
was a little bit of Blind Date, if you like, and a little bit of something else that they all put together. The concept of matching two strangers and then sending them away for a weekend. and
Yeah,
then
I want to
bringing
ask you
them
all
back.
about this.
No, I wanted you.
How did I get the gig? Right.
Yes.
I wanted to do some more television, Sam, and so I did a few auditions at Channel 9 and other places. One of them was for Family Feud, which Daryl Summers got. And I kept going to these auditions, and I kept getting these letters to say, "No, bad luck, thanks for coming in."
What about your confidence?
Shattered. But I realised that, you see, when they do these auditions, quite often they know who they want, but they just have to be seen to be casting a big net. So you go in to do an audition and you're never going to get the job anyway.
So you got to have a bit of resilience in this game that you were in.
And desire and talent. And so consequently, eventually I did this audition for Family Feud and was told, "No, you're no good." And then a couple of months later, Grundy's approached me and said Channel 10 had seen the audition that you did for Family Feud that Daryl got, and they want you to do Perfect Match.
Wow.
And I said, "What is Perfect Match?" And so I was flown to Sydney and I was shown a format, game one, where the picker, there's three girls on one side of the screen and asked a series of questions. The segment 2, bring them back and find out how they got on their date. Segment 3, repeat of segment 1.
And you did all that off the... I know it's sort of scripted, but...
Yeah, all
ad-libbing
was
is the
all ad-lib.
secret to... So that's why.
That's why it worked.
That's
I
why
think
it
so.
worked, because you're a star at doing that.
Yeah, I used to tune in.
Just a minute, Donald. You don't overlook that. It's all right for people to read things off video sheets, and this is why Eddie Maguire was fantastic at what he does, and that's why that man is... Because you've got to be able to do it off the top of your head and sum up a situation, ask the right questions, and be a bit tricky and a bit provocative and a bit sexy and a bit appealing, and that's why...
Well, he might have had all those talents and things going for him, but he was overshadowed by Kerry Friend.
And Debbie Newsom.
Now, what has happened to those two ladies?
So can we talk about the hostesses that I had? That's what we called them, hostesses. There were 6 on that television show. 6. Now, you've mentioned 2. There's a trivia question for you. So the first one was Debbie Newsom.
Yep.
Yes.
Lovely girl. Yep. Beautiful girl.
Victoria Nichols?
No. Don, you've got another
Kerry
one.
Friend.
Kerry Friend. There's 2. Anyone got any ideas
No.
of any others? Yeah, go on.
Pricey's brother married.
Yep. Initials NB. That's it. Very good. Keep going.
Nikki Burke.
Nikki Buckley.
Buckley. Was she on there?
She was on there.
I thought she was on Sale of the Century.
She was on Sale of the Century.
Oh, she...
Go on.
Then there was another one called Tiffany Lamb.
Tiffany Lamb.
Yes, Tiffany Lamb, beautiful lady. So they're all beautiful ladies, but I was blessed. So there was Debbie Newsom, then Tiffany Lamb, then Kerry Friend, and then Ankie Nordberg.
Oh, yeah.
You wouldn't remember Ankie.
No,
I remember the name.
The Grundys wanted to freshen up the hostess each year, to get some publicity. And
freshen them
they
up.
came along and they said, you're going to be working with Ankie Nordberg.
Oh, fantastic.
And I don't know whether Ankie ever really fully understood what was going on on the television show, but she was lovely and pretty to work with and gone after that year. And then Nikki came along. And then the show came to a conclusion. That's 6.
Okay, so before I used to watch it religiously. 5:30, come in, do my horses. I was living at Wandon, and I'd sit down. And the fascinating thing was, I always waited for the reunion.
Yeah, the return.
The return. Now, how many of those were scripted?
No.
That's my
it,
question.
Sam. That's it.
Greg has a great
theory.
Not a theory. He's a very good observation about the shows today, the reality shows like Married at First Sight or whatever. They're all actors, and they're all set up. This is why this was good, and because it was not set up, and no one was paid to do it, and all that.
That's
right,
true,
Greg?
Don. That is true. That is true, Sam, and that's right, Don. I think, this is my theory, one of the reasons why Perfect Match back in the 80s worked so well was because it wasn't scripted, whereas they've tried to bring the show back in various ways. I think Blind Date was the last attempt a year or so ago. All scripted, everything scripted. Contestants often hired for their acting abilities. Reruns. We'll do a show. If it doesn't work, we'll do it again until we get it right, and then we'll put it to air. Whereas with Perfect Match, there was never any of that. The way you would get on the show is you would go to an audition. There was a church in Richmond, and the auditions were so popular you had to bring your own pencil. We didn't have enough lead in our pencils for them to be able to do it because the queue was 3 miles long to get into this church to fill out an 18-page questionnaire, Don. 9 pages about themselves, 9 pages about their prerequisites in a partner. And that 18-page questionnaire was what got them onto the show.
It's unbelievable.
Do you mind if he has a moustache? Do you mind if he wears glasses? Do you mind if he doesn't have a driver's license? Do you mind if she has blonde hair? And all of that. And computers were just starting in 1985. But Dexter, the robot, you remember that?
Yeah.
Most blokes remember Dexter, the robot. The women remember the romance, and the men remember the robot. It's true. But anyway, Dexter there was a computer behind it, a big IBM computer with tapes
Wheels
on it, and
cogs.
Dexter was the mouthpiece with the daisy wheel printer in the front. So they were actually computer matched based on the 18-page questionnaire. Now, I wonder if we'd filled in an 18-page questionnaire on you blokes. Wouldn't that be interesting? 9 pages in yourself, 9 pages about your prerequisites in a partner.
So Greg, it was extraordinarily successful, and this leads on. And the reason it was the reason you were successful is because the number one, the marquee show on any station still today is their news. And you led into the Channel 10, not Channel O, Channel 10 news with unbelievable ratings, and whether people stayed on to watch Mal Walden or whoever's ever reading the news, that they were given a hands-up audience just off the top, weren't they?
Yes, it's amazing. It happened about 6 months in. It just took off within 6 months. It was the highest rating show on television. Numbers don't mean too much, but 60 Minutes was rating 33. Perfect Match was rating 36, so it was knocking off and we were on 5 nights a week. 60
if I may, at the height of the footy show, we were rating 41.
Wow, well, there you go. Different, there you go. Beautiful stuff. I've never really known what that 41 or 36 meant.
It probably
Share of people watching TV.
Share of people.
Watching TV.
Yeah, well, to me, it was about as complicated as when you had the bloke in talking about the draft.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus.
Very good, man. So Greg, moving along, Greg, you were so successful that then came you would probably think, I would think, the big break in your life, the big offer that everyone waits for, and it certainly came to you.
But paint the picture, John, about... people don't realise how big it was back in those days about news.
Well,
and the 5:30 news slot.
Don,
and
he just said he rated 36 and
I
60
understand,
minutes
but you've got to paint the picture. This is a really big.
It was the number one rating show in Australia.
The time slot is just so important.
He's right.
Well, of course
prior to Perfect Match, to put it in perspective for you, Don, it was a children's time slot. 5:30 at night was after school. prime time, where they could charge AA rates, dollars, right, started at 6 o'clock. But with the success of Perfect Match, prime time came back to 5:30, so it was a gold mine for Channel 10, an absolute gold mine, because they could then start to charge their nighttime rates at 5:30. It was to put it in perspective, the other channels were rating a 4 against Perfect Match rating a 36. So,
and then you've got the follow-on to your news, which has started at 6 o'clock.
And
you had the biggest news
leading
in Melbourne.
Channel 10 rated its bum off.
Yes.
Thought I said that, but we've reconfirmed it. So
what are you two?
So, Greg...
There's an echo, that's all. It's just an echo.
Greg, so at this stage you've started to become a pop star. You have become huge. Did you manage to keep your feet on the ground? Did you get ahead of your? Did you get over the top of your skis, or how did you handle this sudden? No, mate, you were as big as anyone ever in this industry. How did you handle it?
You embarrassed me. Thank you, Sam. I tell you what. What happened. I spent a lot of time at Bonnie Doon. Yep. My father was born at Bonnie Doon in northeastern Victoria.
It's a shithole.
You call it a shithole.
Greg is domiciled up there with the badger. He lives there. He's got a house. His late mother, revered Bonnie Doon. She lived every day to be at Bonnie Doon, and you've called it a fucking shithole. You are a disgrace. And wash your mouth out, Don, please. What a beautiful, idyllic country town is Bonnie Doon. It's lovely on the banks. Fuck you, Don. That's extraordinary. So how did you get up to the shithole every week?
I drive up there. They couldn't pick up the television show in the country, so therefore I could go up and I could have a beer at the Bonnie Doon pub, and no one really knew too much about me.
That's
so
bullshit, Greg.
Greg.
No, that's
I reckon
not,
that's what happened.
You were sought after by man, woman, and beast. But I know you batted them all back, and it's just so. We get onto the radio, and you know what we're going to play on the radio. But before we get onto that, Greg, you must tell us that Channel 9 then decided. I'm telling you this now. Channel 9 then decided that they wanted to win the news, and the only way they could win the news was to break up the lead-in to Channel 10's news, and they poached you. They offered you just.
How much did you have to do with Sam Chisholm at Channel 9?
Very little, but I know who he is. Yeah. And so just
why do you ask that?
Well, because there's a story, there's a backstory to what Sam's asking.
So
do you?
Go ahead. No, you've told
Do you want to hear the story?
Yes, I do.
How did they get me out of Channel 10 over to Channel 9?
That's why I've asked you, Greg.
Yeah. My contract was a 3-year contract at Channel 10, just 3 years. And what one normally does is roll a contract over if everything's going successful. I was hosting 2 shows on Channel 10, Perfect Match and Star Search, and they forgot, in inverted commas, to talk to me about the contract. So I've now got 4 weeks left on the contract. The year's coming to an end. It's November. And I thought, well, I better take a couple of these execs to lunch at the Golden Peacock or something, that Chinese restaurant in Crow's Nest, that famous one.
Sydney?
Sydney.
Oh, no.
Sydney.
Oh, Don.
So we're in Sydney. And so I took the blokes from Channel 10 and they said, Crow's Nest.
It's that guy's name.
Yeah, him. Yeah.
This is the Rocket.
Just 400 people that know about
the Rocket talking off air to Greg as though he's known him for 100 years.
You know that bloke's name, as if that's interesting listening. Shut up, Rod.
Well, Don, just let them chat on because no one will hear it. Go ahead.
Anyway, so they've said it's Valerie Hardy's fault. She should have done your contract and not our fault. And they left. We've got to get back to work. And they left me at the Chinese restaurant. I picked up the bill. They left me at the Chinese restaurant, and sitting at the table across the way was Sam Chisholm, David Leckie, and all of the Channel 9 executives.
Is that serious?
And as I was going to the loo, Chisholm said, Greg, what are you doing? Come over, sit down. And I said, I can't, I've got to go. I've got to go back to the hotel where I was staying at the Intercontinental.
Is this a setup? So they were there, they knew you were going to be there?
No, coincidence.
This is serendipitous, Don.
Coincidence.
Oh, that word again.
And Sam Chisholm was so nervous he spilt his beer all over the table to get me to sit down at the table, and I sat there, and he said, now, Greg, he said, are they looking after you at Channel 10? I said, well, as a matter of fact, I'm here because they forgot to look after me. I've got a contract. He said, your contract ends in 4 weeks. I said, yeah. He said, right, I'll tell you what to ask George Brown for, who was the boss of Channel 10 in Sydney. He said, go and ask him for several $1 million, right?
Yeah.
Now, this is the cleverness of one channel saying that if we can't get him, we're going to make the other one pay a lot of money for him. And I said, oh, yeah, that's fine. That's far beyond what I'm earning, Sam, but thanks very much. I said, I've got this Chinese man that you're trying to think of, something like that, getting me a taxi. And Sam said, no, you take my limousine. It's out the front. Oh, God. So next thing I'm in the Channel 9 Sam Chisholm big mafia staff car, this 450 SEL Mercedes-Benz with black windows, heading back to the hotel. And when I get back to the hotel, the light on the phone's flashing. It's the Badger, says, where have you been? I said, I've been to Peacock Gardens, I think it was called. And, well, Sam Chisholm's been on the phone. What? How did he get my number? It was a silent number, and I don't know, but he said, you're not to do anything with Channel 10 until you phone Channel 9 tomorrow and use the code word Katrina.
Oh.
And it was all very clandestine. So the next morning, dutifully, I was up there in Sydney making some Perfect Match end of the year recaps and specials. So I rang Channel 9. Hello, TCN Channel 9. Oh, hello, Katrina. Yes, one moment, please. Like the password, it worked, right?
Like a film,
the next thing,
like a Bond movie.
Next thing, Sam picks up the phone and like straight through this golden password. Yeah, Greg, I've been thinking about what we talked about at the restaurant. He said, what are you doing for lunch today? I said, I'm working at Channel 10. We're making, special. Right, you get lunch hour? I said, yeah. Right, get in a taxi and go to the North Sydney Travelodge. And when you walk into the reception, just use the code word, right? All right, be there at 1 o'clock. I said, okay. All right. 1 o'clock, we break for lunch at Channel 10. I get in a cab, I go to the North Sydney Travelodge. I walk up to reception and I say, Katrina. And this bloke with a whole stack of keys on his belt comes out, come with me. And this is the manager, and he puts me in a lift that's locked off to all floors. And so he's put the key in and twisted it and pushed a button and the doors have shut. I'm like Maxwell Smart. Up I've gone. And it's opened, and there sits in this empty nightclub. The whole floor was like a nightclub, empty, no one in it, but Sam Chisholm and Vicky Jones, the publicist. And that's it. They're the only two that are there. The doors have shut, and here I am, confined on this. And Sam said, righto, what does it take to get you across to Channel 9? We'd like you to come and work for us. I said, well, I haven't even thought about that. I'm doing 2 shows at Channel 10. He said, no, they're a bunch of fools. He said, we will make you a star. We will look after you at Channel 9. And their philosophy was very,
That is what they
like
do,
that.
let us assure everyone.
And so consequently, he said, look, you don't have to make any decisions now. He said, just tell me who your man is. And I'm going, well, who's my man? And
it's the Badger.
Lawyer. No, the lawyer. He wanted to know, who... So I told him of the lawyer, it was Brian Ward, who was my lawyer at the time, and negotiated contract. And that was it. Finished up there. The man with the keys came back, got me in the lift.
Greg, surely you're not going to mention the other part. Surely you're going to mention the...
What happened?
Said you were... Not on that big of money, you said at 10, and they hit you with a deal that no one could refuse. Is that correct?
We're talking 1985,
I
don't know how much you were earning in 1985.
Yeah, but too, Bob.
On Sunday morning after that, the lawyer rings me and says, what's going on? Sam Chisholm is at my house. And he's out pushing my kids on the swing in the backyard. What's happened? And I said, well, God. He said, I've been for a jog. I got a breadstick under my arm. And he said, and I got the boss of Channel 9 sitting in the backyard. What does he want? I said, well, he wants me to come and work at Channel 9. Okay, don't go anywhere. I'll ring you back in half an hour. Half an hour later, the phone rings. And the lawyer, Brian Ward, says he wants to know how much money you want to come to Channel. It was purely money, Yep. We know what you are, madam. We're just negotiating the price.
Yeah, that's it.
And so Ward said, why don't we ask him for $1 million?
$1 million?
Yeah. A year.
In 1980.
A year.
84.
In 85. Yeah,
Holy
86.
That is.
And so he said, we've got nothing to lose, have we? So he went back to Sam Chisholm and said, we want a 3-year contract for $3 million.
Oh.
And Chisholm said, that's too much money, but if that's what it's going to take, let's do it. I'm not leaving here until we have a handshake on this. Ward and him shook, and he got in his limousine and went away. He said, tell Greg to ring me Monday morning, use the password Katrina, which I did. And Sam Chisholm said to me, I'll never forget this, he said, Greg, he said, now look, I went down to your lawyer. He said, he's going to send you a bill. The bill's going to be pretty hefty. I've asked him to draw up the contract. No good Channel 9 doing it because he can only pick the eyes out of it. He'll draw up the contract. When it's ready, we'll sign it. Don't mention a word to Channel 10, right? They're not to find out until it's all done and dusted. He said, but when the lawyer sends you the bill, he said, you just pass it on to me. I said, oh, thank you, Sam. Ward did the contract, and just by the way, the bill arrived in my letterbox 3 weeks later, and it was $40,000.
Holy crap!
Back then,
I know,
and I rang Sam. I said the bill's arrived. He said, "How much is it?" I said, "It's $40,000." He said, "Right, just post it to me."
So, Greg,
these are things that just...
It's an extraordinary story, and so they got you specifically over to 9 to stymie and kibosh Channel 10's news, didn't they?
Correct.
But also, can I add, didn't they go after Rob Gell and
Joe Pearson.
Joe Pearson as well? Did
Yes.
that come at the same time?
Channel 9 had a
Because
philosophy,
they were
and
doing...
I guess it was Kerry Packer, because, Kerry, he ran Channel 9 like a Hollywood movie set. He wanted the stars to be at Channel 9. He believed in the star theory, that if you have the best, you make stars out of them and people... And he achieved that. Channel 9 has always been the station of the stars. Look at this great one. You're sitting opposite us here, Don. And so consequently, when Joe Pearson and Rob Gell started to get some fame at Channel 10, Channel 9 buys them across.
They were at the same time at Channel 10 as you were. They were following on with the news.
Yes.
So the three of you went to 9.
I think they went before me.
Oh,
yeah,
they went
I think so.
you.
So Greg, so you got the
So there I am at Channel 9.
You got the chockies, you got the biscuits, you're set up, and
They had nothing.
they were not interested really. They were interested in you, but they were just only interested in belting 10's news
Double-edged
service.
sword for them, really, wasn't it? Because,
And then-
because it didn't really matter. They had enough stars and enough shows, but they could destroy Perfect Match. So whichever way it worked, they were going to win. And as it turned out, Sam said to me, well, now, you're here at Channel... that was another big one. The Daily Mirror came out with a front-page story, Greg quits Channel Perfect Match, and that's how Channel 10 found out, and that's what he wanted. And next thing I get back to the Intercontinental, and Chisholm has upgraded me. All my clothes are gone. I'm now up in the top suite, and this is the suite where Kerry Packer and Alan Bond signed that deal when Bond took over Channel 9, and I'm up there with this big boardroom table, this king-size beds, all done by Channel 9.
So
it's quite amazing.
And
then Sam says, "Now I suppose you wonder what we've got for you," and he said, "Well, nothing."
Nothing?
Nothing.
And
hang on.
Well,
he's got nothing for
nothing.
you.
No, they just wanted me over there
to break up 10.
To break up a Perfect Match. But look, to his credit, and I say this to his credit, if we'd found something, it would have been good. But we never ever found anything that was going to work for me on Channel 9.
And so then, just to cut this, get to the chase. You've got $3 million for 3 years. You're sitting there doing nothing, and in the end, they probably called you bluff. They probably thought, I'm not sure Greg's going to sit here for 3 years just copping the money. He probably wants to do something. Who doesn't want to, at the prime of their television optimum career, want to do something? So you actually went to them and said, now look, I'm putting words in your mouth. Could you release me from this contract? They must have thrown the champagne in the air when you said that.
They did.
It's extraordinary.
How long into the contract did you do that?
6 months. 8 months.
It's amazing. You had yachts and boats and you had trips overseas, and they thought, surely you'll cop this for 3 years, and you didn't. To your great credit, you thought, no.
Why great credit?
Well, because he didn't want to sit in his ass. He wanted to do something. He was a star. He wanted to perform.
The $3 million.
I know we would have now, but
Yeah.
How would that'd be worth what? 2, 4, 5 million a year now?
Oh no, man! $1 million in '84 would be worth fucking 10, 8.
8 million a year, and you.
What? That's 40 years, 36 years on, isn't it?
You could have bought Bonnie Dune. You could have bought the whole weir and the houseboats.
You could have bought the shithole and that chain.
Jeez.
No, 40 years ago, $1 million is that is extraordinary money. Now, Greg, we could go on. I tell you, we could do.
But
this.
hang on, so where did you go to? So you resign. You get your. What do you do after that?
Well, when you're sitting at home, Don, doing nothing, as Sam said, it was a lonely spot to be, and Channel 10 said, "Well, come back. We'll change the name of Perfect Match to Blind Date, and you can host the show again."
Oh,
and Sam's right. I wanted to work, and so I rang Channel 9, and they got what they wanted then, and
absolutely,
and so. They released me from the contract, and I went back to work for a pittance on Channel 10.
So great.
Was happy.
So I'm. That is
happiness.
That is
happiness is what life's all about.
Yeah, I got that.
French.
I know
happiness. We call it happiness, but happiness.
I've got a very good video of a copper saying that. I'll show it to you after this, and I'll tell Don why your wife's called the Badger. Now, Greg. So this could go on all day. The reason I'm asking you this is because you know probably what we're going to play here. Then you are the only time I've worked with you is that we filled in for breakfast radio on 3AW during the holidays. How long ago was that? In what?
1993.
93.
I was in Alice Springs when I got a call from Steve Price.
Stevie.
And he said, "We would like you to fill in for Ross Stevenson and
John Burns.
Dean Banks."
Oh, Dean Banks, yep.
With a man called Sam Newman.
Yep.
And I said, I know about Sam. I said, I'm scared of him. He'll cut me to pieces. I mean, Sam will just eat me for breakfast. Because you were writing in the Herald Sun, I think,
yes.
and very hard-hitting, Don, I mean.
He was the first.
Question and answer thing.
He was the first. Got denigrated by all the other journos, yet they're all following
head-to-head it was
now.
called. Head-to-head.
Yes. So Steve Price said to me, "No, Sam's a terrific bloke. You'll really like him, and we'd like you two to work together because he needs you and you need him. We need your radio prowess to keep the thing running on time, and we need him because he's going to be one of the biggest stars in the media." He was just starting his career. This is pre-footy show, everything in the media. And I said, all right, okay, I'll do it. Well, it's for 6 weeks over Christmas. And so I got to 3AW on the first day, still hadn't met Sam. And it's 3:30 in the morning. McGowan's doing the overnight thing, and I've rung the doorbell, and up I've gone. And there was a man there called by the name of Beers.
Yes,
and
Brian Beers?
Beers.
No, not Stephen then.
Stephen Beers, yes.
Stephen then.
He was a panel operator.
Oh, he was.
He was our panel operator.
He's now the boss.
Yeah, I know he is, but he was our panel.
Yep.
And he said, "My name's Beers." And I said, "Hello, well, I'm Greg." He said, "Well, your office is down there. All the lights were out. I've gone down there. Where's Sam?" "Oh, don't worry, he'll be here." And it's now, 5:15. We're on the air at 6. "Well, where's Sam? I haven't met him yet." "Don't worry, he'll come." Okay. At 5:30 on 3AW, they crossed overseas for a 15-minute news bulletin until 5:45. This news bulletin's on. I'm lonely in the office with a newspaper. No Sam, hadn't met him. And then Beers yells at me at 16 minutes to 6, "Come to the studio. We're about to talk." Oh, gee. I walk up. The studio, unlike what I'm used to, which is the console and working all the buttons and doing everything, is a room not dissimilar to this with a table and 4 microphones and a little television screen in it. And Beers is on the other side of a glass
screen
panel. Yeah. And I put the headphones on, and he says, "Right, stand by. The news is going to finish in 15 seconds. Just, that's the overseas news. Just talk."
Malcolm Stewart might have been doing the overseas.
Could have been.
Guest, yes.
Just talk up until 6 o'clock. I said, "What?" He said, just talk for 15 minutes up until 6 o'clock. Stand by, and he controls my microphone. A red light comes on, and I'm on. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Breakfast on 3AW with Greg Evans and Sam Newman. But Sam's not here yet. I said, Sam, you're probably listening on your way to work. He came to work from a different direction every day, Don, but that's another story.
So where was he?
Anyway, I talk and I talk and I talk and I talk, and at 5 to 6, Beers comes into my headphones and says, cross to police media liaison, and little thing comes on the screen, and I go, and now we cross to police media liaison. Bang, my microphone goes off, and a policeman takes over and talks up till 6 o'clock at night, in the morning. And the news theme starts on 3AW, and still no sign of Sam Newman. And I said, where is this man? I haven't... Beer said, he'll be here, don't worry. And it was 4 minutes past 6, and in he comes in a pair of thongs and a pair of shorts and a singlet and hair under his arms, and he goes, g'day, Greg. I said, g'day, Sam. Right, now you're the great man, what are we doing? I said, well, we got any... No? He said, no, I'll just take the lead from you. I'll just follow you, whatever you want to do. Stand by, on in 30 seconds. What? Okay, well, all right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back, and I'm very pleased to say that Sam Newman has arrived. Good morning, Sam. Good morning, Greg. And we started talking, and we talked for 4 years.
And that's how
for 4 years,
and that is how the Footy Show started. When Eddie started it, that's exactly how it started. Now, Greg, so we spoke to a lot of different people. We had a lot of fun. And
Don, I got to tell you, he ate 2 chooks one day during the 8 o'clock news. He did. Kentucky Fried Chicken had just released a whole bird. You could buy a barbecued chook from KFC, and these lovely promotion women in hot pants and Beers let them into the studio with these chooks, and he stood up and he said, now put the chooks there. And then the 8 o'clock news came on, and he pulled a chook out of its box and he put the Age newspaper, that one that you didn't like then even, because he put it on the ground and he knelt down on one knee, Don, and he ate a whole frigging chook. He ripped into it like as if he was a caveman possessed. He spat the bones out, he pulled the legs off and he chomped into them, and then he wrapped the newspaper up and he threw it in the bin, wiped his hands, and it was 8:05. Now, Greg, what are we doing? That's true. That is true.
I remember. That is true. So, Greg, so then we interviewed a lot of people, and we used to get the helpers out behind that glass panel. And this was when the Academy Awards were on, and they were giving out the Academy...
The Unforgiven.
The Unforgiven. And you said, The Unforgiven has won an award. I think it's won an award. Why don't we speak to the great Bill Collins, the movie critic on Channel 10? Was he on Channel 10?
Yes, he was.
No, hello, Greg. Oh, wonderful to speak to you. Well, he didn't speak to us, as it turns out. So you said, through the microphones, why don't you get to this lady who was out in the... You do this, please.
I remember.
Well, just
and
go
so
on.
she said, I know Bill Collins. I'll get him on the line.
This is your panel operator?
No, that was Beers. This is a woman producer. Who actually went on and yes.
Lee Pignatelli.
No, she ended up marrying Steve Price, didn't she, Sam?
Wendy Black.
Yes, it was Wendy Black.
Was it?
Yes.
I see.
And so Wendy Black said, I know, Bill. Okay, so all right, stand
Black
by.
And Beers.
Yeah,
Beers
Black and Beers
Black.
were out there. And the next thing that comes up on the screen, Bill Collins standing by on the line. Okay.
No, just let him to do it, and then we'll play it. No.
Oh, well, yeah, well, the first thing was, g'day, Bill, and...
Let's have a look.
All right, let's...
So, Jenny, you got to say...
Well, yeah.
Greg thought, we thought, we were...
Okay, hang on. Bill Collins.
Okay, Bill Collins.
The film critic.
Here we go.
Yes.
Right.
Now, at 26 minutes past 8, we have on the line for our On the Couch segment, or What's on Television Tonight, the one and only Bill Collins. Good morning, Bill.
Well, a very good morning to you.
It's Greg here, and Sam is with me. Say hello to Bill.
Yes,
Sam.
hello, Bill. You're a great man. What's doing?
Well, Bill, the last time you and I caught up was on Hamilton Island, and didn't I love you up there?
Yeah, well, that was very nice.
That was terrific. We were there for the Video Retailers Award, and they love Bill because of all those tapes that he's had in the past and what have you. It was good fun, Bill.
So
Yeah, great.
Now, Bill, just before we get on to you telling us what you'd like to watch, could I ask you a question about the Oscars?
Why not?
Did you agree with the Oscar for the Best Picture going to The Unforgiven?
The Unforgiven? I don't know. I've never seen The Unforgiven. I probably will go and see it, but I haven't seen it as yet, no.
Bill, no, that surprises me. I would have thought because of its Oscar-winning performance. Do you normally wait for some time before you see the current movies?
Yeah, quite a while. It's a matter of finding a bit of spare time to go and see them, you know.
Right.
No, seriously, we should have set this up. We should have told people.
That's Bill Collins, the racing.
No, but
Yes.
Look, before we played it, we should have said we thought we were getting Bill Collins, the film critic,
Correct.
on.
We did. We
and
said that.
Wendy Black had inadvertent. Well, she said she
Inadvert-
knows
she-
Bill has got the race
She
caller
didn't know
on.
there were two.
She's got the race
She
caller
didn't
on.
know there were two Bill Collins.
No,
She did not.
That's the word. So we should have set it up better. And so then Greg said, "The last time I saw you was at Hamilton Island," and
yeah,
Bill
but-
said, "Yes, it was good." Well,
Which was the movie Bill Collins that I was referring to. That's who I thought I was talking to.
So we went on with this.
Bill must
and
have thought we were absolute raving idiots.
Bill thought we were nice, and he was pissed off with us because he thought we'd taken the urine out of him, which we absolutely weren't. And with this went on, and when he said, "I haven't seen The Unforgiven," you said, "That's strange, Bill. I would have thought you." He said, "Well, I might take the wife." No, so we're not playing yet. We'll continue it on. So we should have set this up. So when you realised, because Wendy Black,
I can tell you now.
you've got to back to the window that Wendy's there, and Wendy's going.
No.
Waving, it's the wrong Bill Collins.
Well, you realised before me.
Yeah,
so
because
Don,
I could see
Don,
what she was saying.
So, Don, I'm sitting there and I'm labouring on about why Bill Collins hasn't seen The Unforgiven, and the pennies dropped with Sam. And this is what happened. The headphones came off and it all looked in slow motion, and he rose like a sperm whale. Up he came like this, and he went towards the door of the studio, leaving me sitting there trying to talk to Bill Collins about The Unforgiven, and he's flung open the door and he's gone, "Who the are we talking to?" And she said, "The Bill Collins." He's come back into the studio and he sat down, and I'm still trying to talk to Bill about The Unforgiven, and he sat down and he said, "Now, Bill, who's going to win the 4th at Flemington on Saturday?" And
No,
and
honestly.
that's you did, and that's when I realised, and I fell off the chair.
You fell off the back
I
of the
did, I
chair.
did.
You were so mortified. So we should start this again. Right now, seriously, it's gone into the Radio Hall of Fame. This not because we wanted it to. But
Oh, jeez.
So this is it. So here it is again.
So, Bill.
All right. Now, what about television tonight, Bill?
Yes.
What's now, wait. Sam, you better take over.
I'm not sure.
Now, Bill,
Yeah.
is that you're not?
No.
Who are we talking to? Well, we thought Bill, we were talking to Bill Collins from Channel 10. We're talking to the greatest race caller of all time in the history of the world and all other places. Bill, I'm sorry.
Greg, just sit there and giggle.
No, but the fact is you must have thought I was a raving idiot talking about what we were doing on Hamilton Island.
What else is there?
Oh, they've thrown us a wild horse here, Bill. We got the wrong Bill Collins. That's almost as good as Tony Charlton when he spoke to Alan Radkin's mother. And it wasn't Alan Radkin's mother at all. Bill, look, I apologise on behalf of Sam. It's a stupid thing that he did, assuming that you were that Bill Collins. Bill, I'm sorry. Television tonight, Bill.
Television tonight.
Would you like to run through with us what you feel you should watch?
Well, there's only a couple of things that I'd be watching tonight. One is Dead Zone on Channel 2.
Yep.
Which I think is a great show. Even the replays, wonderful actors, and I'll be having a look at the news, and the rest of it is pretty much rubbish as far as I'm concerned.
Dad's Army is a fantastic show. I've been watching the replays of that.
Captain, no, honestly,
Now, and as a backstory to that too, that was very late in the program. We finished the show 5 minutes later. He ran to the office and you rang Bill Collins' wife, and but the other woman, Wendy, Wendy Black, left the building. She had gone. She, with embarrassment, she had left 3AW before we finished, and didn't come back for the rest of the day because of embarrassment of putting up the wrong Bill Collins for us.
So I spoke to his wife, and they were nice and ticked off. They thought we'd set him up.
And Sam said, "Right, what's in the prize cupboard? Get me some Crosnose and get them around to Bill Collins' house
we
now."
sent flowers and champagne and glasses around. I don't think he ever forgave us, but it's that's my fault. We should have explained all of that before we played that. But no, but it's when he realised, that man there, Greg, realised he couldn't stop laughing. He went puce. He went,
it's terrible.
Anyway, listen, I want to know something from you.
Yes.
It's very unclear as to how it happened. You're a marriage celebrant. You were called 2 weeks ago to a high-rise in Docklands. Mm-hmm. Is that right?
Yes, that is right.
So you went up to the 40th floor.
Thank you, Don.
You knocked on the door and you're invited in.
Yes.
Was the prospective bride knew that you were coming?
No.
She didn't know?
No.
So his lordship over here opened the door?
Well, she opened the door.
Oh,
actually.
she opened the door. So what happened? Take it over.
And she said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "I've come to wish you a happy birthday," because it was the said bride's birthday.
Oh, right. Okay.
So that justified that.
Yes, keep going.
Well,
so she's unaware of why you're there.
She's unaware of why I'm there. And then Sam said, "Well, Amanda, happy birthday, and I was wondering if for your birthday you would like to marry me."
What?
And
at the front door, as you're standing in the door?
Virtually. And this beautiful lady, her knees started to shake, Don, and her hands started to shake. We needed to turn off the television, and she couldn't even hold the remote control. She was so nervous. And she said yes 4 times. Yes.
4 times.
Yes, she said. and it was just a beautiful moment in her life, Sam's life, and my life. I was privileged to be there.
And who else was there?
Witnesses. There were 2 witnesses.
So what, they rocked up after? So they
they were already there.
Oh, they were there.
Yes, my son and my best friend Kevin.
Yes,
King.
they were there to celebrate the birthday. You see.
What about
I had arranged this with Greg. By law, you have to have 2 witnesses.
Yes.
So
wouldn't it have been embarrassing if she'd said no?
Well, we said that. I said, now Greg has come here to marry us if you wish.
From Bonnie Doon.
If you don't, that shithole. If you don't wish to get married, Amanda, Greg will just get straight back in the elevator and go back to the shithole. So that didn't eventuate? So
no, it didn't eventuate because she did say yes, Don, and it was a very simple and lovely small ceremony, which is the way you wanted it.
Absolutely.
And with minimal words, except the legal ones, and then
we repaired off to an eating venue and had just some...
And masticated.
That's exactly
what about Greg being a celebrant? It's Norman law. It goes way back to Norman times, that the marriage must be consummated.
No,
is that still...
No, Don.
Oh, it's all right.
No,
so that's just ficticious.
That's just an urban myth these days.
Oh, okay, thanks. Okay.
Anyhow, just to clear it up, the best man consummated it for me because we haven't been able to get it up, you and I, Don, for the last 10 years. So it was consummated, but not by me. Now, Greg. Greg. No, my best friend did, young Kev. No, he'll love that. He listens to this. Now, Greg, I don't know if the confidence is part of your jurisdiction. Who have you married? Can you tell us any of the people that you've married that we might find interesting or not?
No,
or
I
is
can't.
That not done?
No, I can't.
No, you can't do that.
And that's a question without notice.
No,
I'm thinking of some of the fun ones. There was. You would know this person through Tony Thompson. You would know this person, yes. And it was a little wedding down on the beach at Port Melbourne, and he was standing on the sand, the guests were there, and it was time, and the bride, I played the appropriate, and she didn't come out.
What?
And she
Come out
didn't-
of where?
Well, a little kiosk
Oh,
to
yes,
walk
yep,
down
yep,
to
yep,
the
yep.
sand to where we stood. And I said, well, ladies and gentlemen, I better go back in and see what's happened. And I left them all there, left the groom standing there, went back in, and there's the bride with a massive blood nose. I mean, the blood is pouring out of her nose down on her white dress, which became pink. And there's her mother with an ice pack on her back and said she always gets a blood nose when she gets nervous. And so I went back out to the groom and I said, she's got a blood nose. He said, she always gets a blood nose when she gets nervous. And eventually the ice pack worked and they got it. And, 10 minutes later, as I say, she walked out. She held her flowers in front of the pink on her dress and they ended up getting married. Another one was a bride who was an hour late for a wedding. And the limousine pulled up out the front and she was in tears, just sitting in the back of the limousine sobbing. And I went out and I said, what's the matter? She said, I've been planning this wedding for the last 6 months, she said. And as we were leaving home, she said, my dress got caught in the door and the door slammed and Dad didn't have a key. And for the last hour, I've been stuck in the front door. I said, now Don, the difference between a man and a woman is if it had been you or I, we would have just cut our way out of that, with a knife. No,
right.
they won't cut the wedding dress.
Do you do deaths as well?
No.
Just marriages?
Yes. Yes, I don't think I'm the right person. I highly commend funeral celebrants. They are wonderful people and they have a special ability and a special gifted talent, but that's not for me.
Now, the Rocket is just a very good. The Rocket we call Rocket Rod,
yes.
Rod Laver, but Rocket Rod
Yes.
Law. The Rocket said, has anyone actually backed out or not done it or left you high and dry or left the bride or the groom high and dry? Or
No,
nothing
no.
like that?
But there's been ones that haven't happened.
What do you mean? Haven't happened?
Well, I was to do a wedding recently, and 2 days before the ceremony, the bride collapsed and was taken to intensive care.
Oh, okay.
For an unknown illness.
How many have you done?
Nearly 800.
It's
Sam.
extraordinary. And I know, Modest, it's just, I know you, the great,
Sounds like initials could be
how am I going?
Dexter.
Your mentor.
Oh, yes, Dally Messenger.
Will he be nice and happy?
No.
I just had a mental block, Dally, I'm sorry. This is Dally Messenger's grandson, the man who
Daly,
has...
yes, Dally. Yeah.
Dally Messenger, who has the
Dally M.
Dally M medal named for him for the NRL best and fairest. That's his grandson. He was Greg's mentor.
He was,
and,
is, yeah.
And are you the most successful?
Well, you see, how it all started, me doing this, was because of Kevin Bloody Wilson, the singer. And Kevin, and we're friends, and it was backstage after his gig one day. He said, would you marry my daughter? He said, you don't have to be a registered marriage celebrant. She's getting married in Nashville, and then a week later, she's bringing her husband to Australia, and my house over in Perth, we're holding another ceremony. So it's not a real wedding, because you can't get married twice. Yeah. So I didn't need to be, he said, but look, my wife Betty and my daughter Tanya, they loved Perfect Match.
Hang on, Betty, your wife.
Is Kevin Bloody Wilson's wife.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Kev said to me, my wife Betty and my daughter Tanya loved Perfect Match. They used to watch it every night with a towel over the TV, and they'd listen and listen, and they'd pick number 1, 2 or 3. Then they'd pull the towel off and see who got the ugly one.
He'd write a song about that, Kevin.
He would.
Hey, Santa, you old...
Santa, where's my bike? So Kev wrote the ceremony and told everyone Uncle Joe was going to be the celebrant, and I was flown in very clandestine, and consequently Uncle Joe got up and said, we are gathered here today. But
and that's how it started.
Yeah, but we got Greg Evans, and they played the Perfect Match theme, and the bride looked around. She was dressed in the white dress, his daughter, and she looked around and went... and she looked at her mother, and her mother went,
fuck.
And
yeah.
Kev was there with his arms crossed. He had
Fantastic.
achieved what he wanted. He'd surprised them.
Yeah.
And that's how it all started. And he said, mate, you should do that.
And you did.
And then the next thing I met Dally Messenger.
Yeah. He's a great man.
He said, I run a college that teaches celebrants. And
very good man.
And that's
now, Greg, there are so many, as I say, before we finish this, is there anything you would share, I don't know, on what, the television, radio, marriages, anything that you think, just to leave us with something that has happened in your life, or I don't even know what I'm asking, but just something that, because I'm sure we've missed something that we should have asked you.
Well, gee whiz.
If you can't think of it, doesn't matter, but I'm
Can I ask you one thing?
Yes.
From the time radio, as it is today, your comment from when you started, because there used to be schools of radio where you go and learn, and it was very, very professional the way
speaking
you had
to
to
the microphone, those sort of things.
I noticed that too.
And television, how it's changed. Just
yes.
Radio.
Well,
and
radio.
television.
Once upon a time, Don, radio announcers used to speak like this. The time is 9 3/4 minutes past the hour of 8 o'clock, and you're listening to Broadcasting Radio Station 3KZ. And so 3XY was instrumental in getting rid of that, because there was a bloke called Rod Muir who ran it and said, no, don't talk like that. Just say, it's 25 past 8 and there's been a prang on the corner of Spencer Street. Not an alleged collision has taken place. And so that's why it was good for me at 3XY, because you could be natural. And the great Stan Rofe said, you'll spend half your career trying to be like someone else, but when you learn how to be yourself, you will be successful. Great bit of advice from the late Stan Rofe on radio. These days, I don't know. None of that exists anymore, Don. You don't have to go to a radio school. Well, they've got diploma courses now on radio. You can go to RMIT and get a diploma in, I don't know, what the rocket does, sliding these faders up and down. Obviously, you haven't been there. But anyway, and they teach you microphone technique.
Now, Greg, Don? Oh, we are sitting with a star. We are. No, he will be immodest enough. He was as big as anyone that's been in the industry. Why didn't you win a gold Logie?
Well, I was nominated three times. And
who pipped you on the three of the times that you were?
Rowena Wallace.
Oh, yeah, Prisoner.
Yeah, Home and Away and all of that. But so I'll leave you with a story. It was the Logies. I was comparing the Logies.
Yes.
Hit year was 1985 or 6, and I didn't want to do it. I was too young. Bert had done it all the way through. But Channel 10 had got the Logies for the first time, so they pushed me into it. And I said, well, I shouldn't be doing it. And they said, yes. And your special guest is Larry Hagman.
Oh, yes.
Who was big as JR.
Yes, in Dallas.
In Dallas.
J.R. Ewing.
So someone said, ring Bert and get some tips. So I rang Bert and he said, you'll have a coffee with the main star, he said, and just find out what he doesn't want to talk about so you don't, you'll be ad-libbing. I said, yeah, I'll be ad-libbing. Okay, that's fine. And Larry Hagman came to the cocktail party with a walking stick with a fan on it.
I was at a function. He had that walking stick at the function.
Because he didn't like cigarette smoke, so he'd park it around. And I said, can we have a coffee? He said, no, we can't. How long would that take? I said, 10 minutes. He said, no, too much of my time. We'll just wing it. I said, all right, we'll wing it. I'm happy with that. So I had done my prep. I knew what I was doing, and we got out there. The Logies. It was a really tough night. It was in where the old casino used to be in Melbourne, and the acoustics were terrible because it had almost no roof. It was like a giant atrium. And at 5 o'clock that night, they were trying to put gaffer tape down and remove the flowers off the centre of the table and put a speaker there because people up the back couldn't hear, which they never could anyway. And when people can't hear, they talk, right? Yep. So this is very hard for me on stage. At 6 o'clock that night, a script comes under my door at the hotel. The whole thing has been scripted. They have decided that they won't risk ad-libbing with anyone. So everyone has got a script. The guests, everyone. So if you were collecting a Logie, Sam, you would be given a script. This was disastrous. I come out there and at the same time, Murray Tregoning was operating the auto cue and they'd just gone digital. And during the afternoon, this thing broke down. And whenever it breaks down, it reverts back to its Japanese manual. Yes. So Jap comes up on the auto cue, right? So there I am, Anyway, we finally get to the Gold Logie. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome the star of Dallas? He's over here now, Mr. Larry Hagman. And the orchestra, dun, 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 dun. The theme from Dallas comes on and he doesn't come out. Ladies and gentlemen, perhaps we weren't clapping loud enough. Let's try it again. And ladies and gentlemen, star of Dallas, Mr. Larry Hagman. Dun, dun, dun. And he came out and he had a bowler hat on and he took it off and $100 notes came down. A friend of mine who was helping me out on the night said, Greg, this guy has, I should have told you, there were 10 questions to be sent to Hagman that afternoon of what Mr. Evans was going to ask Mr. Hagman. They came back, 6 of them were scratched out. Mr. Evans is only to ask Mr. Hagman these 4 questions or he'll leave the stage. So I was on tenterhooks, right? And the auto cue, and David Lyle said to me, I've taped the 4 questions and taped them to the lectern in case the auto cue goes back to Jap. Right? Yeah, I said, okay. He said, don't deviate from the 4 questions or this bloke will leave the stage. He's been very temperamental. He was actually acting like JR. He was acting like a prick.
A prick.
And so consequently, he came out, he saw the 4 questions, he took his hat off and put it over the 4 questions. David Lyle had said to me, if anything goes wrong, he collects hats. We've put an army slouch hat by the lectern. If you run into trouble, give him the hat. Give him the slouch hat.
Oh, it's like kid stuff, isn't it?
So I asked the first question, Mr. Hagman, what's been the best thing that's happened since you've been in Australia? And he looked at me and he said, lunch. Shit. Okay, well,
oh dear.
And I asked him the second question, which the hat's still over it, and I got another monosyllabic answer. And then I couldn't remember the third question, and I thought, bugger it, I'll give him the army hat. And I said, so we understand you collect hats. And he said, yes, I do. I said, well, we've got a gift here for you from all of us here in Australia. This is a genuine army Anzac hat. You know, where the slouch hat, where it's turned up.
Yeah.
And he said to me, which side does the turn up go on?
Oh,
jeez. Oh, God, which side of the... And they're down there, the badger's sitting with people from Channel 10 and they've gone, left. And I hear this whisper and I look at Larry Hagman and I said, Mr. Hagman, the turn up goes on the left. And he looked back at me and he said, your left or my left? I was dead in the water. Anyway, the Age newspaper, that newspaper you talk about, Sam, on page 2 the next day, my tombstone was there. A tombstone, a cartoon, and it said Greg Evans died last night at the Logies.
That's right. That's
a tombstone.
The Age, like eunuchs in a harem. They're there every night. They see it done every night. They see how it should be done, but they can't do it them fucking selves. Now, Greg, I've just read this out here. Behind every successful man is a woman. Behind the fall of a successful man is usually another woman. But that's not the case with you. You and the Badger in absolute matrimonial harmony and have been for 100 years. And you are a great man, Greg. I know you well, and you're a very good friend of mine. But you are a star, and some of that stuff brings back great memories, Don, doesn't it?
My word, it does.
Well, it's been a privilege for me to be here with both of you. I love listening to this. This is better than radio, your podcast. This is much better. And I've now learned, I know all about my prostate, and I know about needles and injections.
That's right. Don can just get it up involuntarily lying on his back. Half his luck.
So, it's a terrific podcast, and I'm privileged to have been here today with both of you.
Go back to the shithole now, and please tell us that
on the way to Yark.
Just remember, Don said it.